We bring so many conventions into Atlantic City. I don't know why there isn't time put aside to address the businesses that are there as tourists, to bring them in, show them around the city, and show them what kind of assets we have that they could develop into something that their companies would succeed in.
Yeah, and when I talk about the supply base and the supply chain, I'll use an example. Let's say, I'm trying to think of something that's a simple thing that I've worked on in the past. All right, let's say a helicopter, right? There's a lot of parts that go into a helicopter. There's a lot of tech that goes into a helicopter. There isn't one subcontractor or small business or company that does all of that, right? So there's a company that I've worked for in the past, for instance, like Bell Helicopters, now Bell Flight, where they assemble, they buy all the pieces, right? As me being a program manager, from an execution standpoint, what do? You identify all the parts that make up the bill of materials, right? And that's what constitutes building a particular product like a helicopter. And you identify all the suppliers that can build all the parts that have been designed by engineers. What does that mean? That means that there could be multiple suppliers that can develop the same part on a manufacturing basis. This can be as small as circuit card assemblies or cabling or sheet metal or anything. Take your pick. So what happens? You have all these different types of parts that need to be made. You have all these different types of companies that can do that. So that's the supply base, that's supply chain. So you basically go out and you identify these hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of suppliers that can bid and identify whether or not they can build the part or not. Okay, then you put them on order, you procure, you basically give them a contract, and they deliver them over a period of time, your lead time. So over that lead time, you're taking in parts, you're inspecting them to make sure that they meet the drawing from an engineering standpoint, from a quality standpoint, that they meet the tolerance levels, so you receive those parts in. Once you have all those parts in, then you start assembling your sub-assemblies that then go into your larger assemblies that then go into the actual product of the helicopter. So the reason I'm talking about all of this is that there are numerous pieces of the puzzle that make a particular piece of product in particular aviation, defense, or aerospace. That means even if we got a handful of those suppliers that are in those states, those blue, deep dark blue states, they don't have to necessarily be the main assemblers, the main contractors, the primes, but the builders, the subcontractors, the small business companies that if Massachusetts is too expensive for them to live and to amortize a move because of the tax cuts and the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that the President Republicans passed, they can amortize that move, and we can make it attractive for them to come here.
Make your widget in Atlantic City.
Yes, and exactly.
or Atlantic County.
Yeah, it could be, and it doesn't have to be just confined to Atlantic County. I mean, if there's space in Cumberland County or other counties, Salem County, for instance, I've had great conversations with individuals over in Salem County. These are the types of things that we have to think about outside the box. You need to have someone who has the vision and the tenacity and, basically be as relentless as I am
and
to push this.
And be as bright, be as knowledgeable as you are, to be able to lay it out in an easy to understand format so that everybody who is in charge of legislating these laws that will bring these companies into town understands what good can be done by their passing that kind of legislation.
Exactly. And what happens when we have these companies that come here? Then there's more workers. Then they have more money to spend. They have more money to do things. And that can spill over. There can be multi-purpose suppliers that not only just do defense and aerospace, they could do other things from an industrial standpoint. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of the vision. We can't continue to try and exercise these ideas of the past that get recycled every 10 or 15 years. For instance, over down in LD1, the Republican state Senate candidate Michael Testa is doing a great job of getting his message out, and he's looking to replace that placeholder in Bob Anderzak, who took Congressman Van Drew's state Senate seat. And Bob Anderzak is now recycling a promise that Jeff Van Drew made in terms of finishing Route 55, i.e. the Cape May Expressway.
Oh my gosh.
So, Michael's doing a great job of getting his message out and why, these policies of the past are not working, and you can't just recycle a new promise because there's another generation that couldn't remember the last promise. And my point of saying all that is my pitch to run in Congress and be a representative here in South Jersey in the 2nd District in election 2020 is to show that we can do things. 7 months through, with Van Drew. Again, he was over at the 177th Fighter Wing. He goes and makes the promise that we need to get more F-35s over there. Great. He's on Agricultural Committee. He's not on the House Armed Services Committee. He has no power. He has no influence to do that. Just like he interjected himself into the AC rail line discussion, which was a state issue. He made onerous promises that we're going to get this back online. He has no power to do that as a federal representative. Yeah, he can be a great cheerleader. Good for him. I'm all for that. But in terms of making these onerous promises that he can actually do something when he can't, I think is disingenuous. And that's the same thing when he goes and does a photo op at the 177th Fighter Wing, goes on a simulator.
Hey, that's what it's all about. Yeah. It's the photo ops.
And, I found it amusing. The Press of AC went and covered this article about him being there and operating a simulator. I'm great. He finally got a chance to utilize something that I've worked on in my professional career. Good for him. So it's having that understanding and making the pitch that, look, leverage my background, use me as a vehicle to not only represent you in Congress, obviously with the issues that matter most, sending reinforcements to President Trump so that we can get things going on a federal level, but also bringing much needed injection and continuing improvement here in South Jersey that Frank Lobian did such a great job at from a standpoint of what he's done with the tech center as well as getting federal grants down in Cape May. So that's one of the major points.